What's up everybody, and welcome back to the Slayer's Den. Thank you guys again so much for joining me. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be showing you how to make the most fun and, more importantly, most competitive jank decks in standard Magic the Gathering Arena. So stick around if you're ready to become a jank deck building machine. A lot of these principles apply for general deck building, so even if you're not into jank decks, this video could be super helpful to you because it does work for general deck building. But before we continue, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Slayer's Den. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to check this video out. And if you do enjoy the vid or you get any kind of value from it, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons for me because it does help my channel out a ton. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the term, you're probably wondering, what is a jank deck? So in Magic the Gathering, a jank deck is a deck that's built around unlikely combos or alternative win conditions. Jank decks tend to feature cards that are not necessarily powerful by themselves, but combine well with other cards. Overall, jank decks are not typically competitive, so you won't see them played in professional tournaments too often, but are able to win in a unique or weird way. So the next question you might be asking is, if it's not competitive, why play jank at all? So the beauty of the jank deck is not that it'll win you a tournament or help you rank up in Mythic MTG Arena, though it potentially could, but it's the fun of building a deck that can surprise the hell out of your opponents and has the potential to take down powerful and more competitive decks. For me personally, I enjoy jank decks because there are a ton of cards out there that I really want to play, and it's almost a shame that after a new set release or opening countless booster packs, then I can't even enjoy most of my cards because they don't fit into a lot of more competitive decks. Not only that, but it gets kind of stale seeing the same decks over and over again before you're like, F it, I'm gonna play something else. Last, as a jank brewer, it's kind of like this self-imposed challenge to use off-meta cards to win, and there's something oddly satisfying when it actually works. That's why you see me laugh like a madman at the end of each of my matches most of the time. Now here's the million-dollar question. How do you build a jank deck? Now, as I said earlier, a jank deck is just a deck built around unlikely combos or alternative win conditions, so that can basically be anything you want. So if you haven't ventured into jank brewing yet, or you're ready to take your jank game to the next level, here are a few helpful tips for building your first or your next jank deck. 1. Take a quick scan of your collection and see if there are any cards you haven't played or want to play with, and separate them into categories like color, theme, mechanics, etc. This is going to be super helpful in determining what you can build and how you can maximize the potential of those cards. 2. Pick one or two of those cards to start off and try to build around those cards in terms of color combinations and what will help that card or those cards shine. 3. Find the win. While this shouldn't hamper your deck building enjoyment, think of how those cards will enable a victory. If those cards can't help you win, then it might be a good idea to reconsider which cards you want to build around. Remember, jank decks shouldn't be like a Frankenstein mashup of all your zaniest cards. Unless that's your ultimate game plan, then more power to you. But many jank decks allow you to have fun while also being a little competitive. 4. Test it out. Whether you want to see if your deck has legs by playing against Sparky, basically the bots mode in MTG Arena, or you want to take it out into the field and play against a real opponent, use this time to test out what it takes to win with your deck. For instance, you'll want to gauge if you have the right mana base to cast all the spells in your deck. The average 60 card deck usually contains around 24 lands, but for decks that contain a lot of low casting cost cards, 22 or fewer lands might be right. And in a deck filled with a lot of expensive spells, or a deck that needs to hit a land drop every turn to function optimally, 26 or more lands could be your magic number. Another thing is, you'll want to know if you're able to get your janky cards out consistently or if they're too expensive to play before your life total hits 0. Basically, if you have specific win conditions in your deck, and you should, you'll want to test out if they can even be met in the current form of your deck. 5. Go back to the lab and make adjustments as often as needed. You've tested the deck out, and now you've found some issues, so it's time to fix them. This could be a simple tweak in the mana base like adding or subtracting lands, or making huge overhauls like removing parts of a combo and replacing them with other cards that are more efficient or resilient. 6. Build around your current meta. This one's pretty important, especially if at some point you want to taste some sweet victory with your deck. Now, unless you're able to win by being completely non-interactive with your opponent somehow, it's a good idea to see what kind of decks are being being played, so you have a shot of competing and even beating certain matchups. Why is this so important? Because you may want to consider playing cards that counter meta decks or simply allow you to survive long enough to win with your jank deck. For instance, after every set release and or card ban, there seems to be an influx of mono red aggro decks that are played because they're hyper aggressive and can take advantage of a changing meta where everyone's trying the fun new cards. So, as a jank deck, you have some options to help you steal games from those evil mono red players, like playing sweepers to destroy the creature board before they overwhelm you, adding life gain elements so that way you can survive the rush of mono red aggro creatures, playing high toughness creatures so that we can just keep blocking them out, and or hexproof protection strategies to make sure that your creatures survive long enough to pop off with whatever combos you've got. Now, these aren't foolproof plans for insta wins, but they do put you in a way better position to pull off janky wins or combos. And that is the main point of building a more competitive jank deck, to put yourself in the best position to win. Now, a really quick note about building around your meta: you cannot build around every single deck. So that is why I mention aggro and mono red aggro specifically, because when mono red aggro decks tend to take over the meta, that's the perfect time to strike and implement and build around that specific archetype. But yeah, you're never going to be able to build a deck that counteracts every single other deck in the meta, so just build around one or two that are really dominant, and that way you can at least set yourself up to win. Last, but possibly the most important tip: don't give up. I know it sounds cliche, but if you've decided to venture down the dark path of jank deck building, it's important to have fun with the process and be okay with losing. Losing while deck testing is simply growth. And as deck builders, jank or otherwise, growth is super important. Unless your jank creation is the new meta killer, you're probably gonna lose your fair share of games. And that's okay, because generally you're gonna have a ton of fun when you finally pull off something absolutely insane. Overall, it's okay to have fun by thinking outside the box while you deck build, and you can enjoy those random wins you earn from unsuspecting opponents. But most of all, it feels very natural to want to play the other 1,000 unplayed cards you have in your collection and see just how far you can push them. And those, my friends, are your top 7 tips for building your first or next powerful and competitive jank deck. So now that you've got some tips on how to create a fun and competitive jank deck, I'm going to show you really quickly on MTG Arena kind of my process on how I brew a jank deck, and then the whole testing process till I get a really cool finalized version on the decks that I play for you guys on YouTube. So I'm going to show you all a new deck that I've been brewing. This one's called Elephant Graveyard, and the reason this deck has been super cool, super fun, is because it is a reanimator deck and it's super janky. But I'm going to explain to you guys kind of my thought process on how I built it and essentially how it works. It's a very janky combo. So basically with this deck, we want to do 2 things. We want to resolve a copy of Titan's Nest, which is a really cool Ikoria card. It's an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You can put that card into your graveyard, exile a card from your graveyard, and add a colorless. And then that colorless mana can be used to cast spells that have 1 or more colors in them. So that's part 1 of this janky combo. And then the second part is Quintoria's Field Historian, which has just a really cool ability. It says whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Okay, so you can see the synergies between these 2 cards. We just dump a bunch of cards into our graveyard. We start exiling away with Titan's Nest 1 at a time. At the same time, we're creating a bunch of 3/2 red and white spirit creature tokens, and they actually get bumped up by +1/+0. And another reanimation target, of course, is Hoffrey Ghostforge, which gives all of our spirits +1/+1, trample, and haste. So as I mentioned in the video, as one of our tips, we are building kind of around the meta. We have some removal. We have a couple copies of Heartless Act, which destroys creatures, a couple copies of Elspeth's Nightmare, which allows us to destroy a creature and also pluck a card from our opponent's hand. So this is kind of a double whammy for the opponent. A couple copies of Extinction Event, which just allows us to exile boards, and then of course the couple copies of Blood on the Snow. So we'll definitely be working against aggro. This will give us plenty of time to set up this really ultra janky combo. So from there, I like to go into a bot match against Sparky so we can just test out the mechanics of the deck to see if it's even viable. And that's the whole reason to test the decks out, because jank decks, while they're awesome in concept, they're not always exactly applicable to real games against real opponents. So we gotta try it out here. So as you can see, we are finally popping off with the combo, which is so sick. It actually works. The whole idea of using Titan's Nest and Quintorius in tandem with each other. At this point, we're just exiling things to piss off Sparky as we go in for a huge alpha strike. I don't think we're going to have to go through the entire deck and the entire graveyard, but you can see what's going to happen here. We just swing in for a ton, and it's a GG for us. So when I review this as a jank deck that I want to play, I definitely notice a few issues. I don't have enough copies of Joffrey here, so it's definitely going to be hard to get that same turn haste and trample ability for our spirits. That's definitely problem one. The other thing I noticed was the mana base was a little bit wonky. It's 3-color Sultai, so yeah, it's going to be kind of tough sometimes. We're running tri-lands to kind of soften that up, but otherwise, yeah, there's not much I would change aside from plucking a few cards out, maybe some removal cards, and then adding 1 or 2 more copies of Joffrey into the deck. That way the combo is a little bit more consistent. But yeah, overall that's kind of how I do it. I'll just build a deck based around a concept or a couple of new cards, and I just love building decks like that. It allows me to use even more cards, because honestly, when is the next time I'm going to play Joffrey Ghostforge or Quintorius Field Historian in a deck? Probably not too often. Now, if you've stuck around this far, thank you so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate it, and more importantly, I hope it was helpful. I hope it brought some value to some of you out there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Let me know if you're trying to build a new jank deck, or if there's a really cool card or a set of cards that you're trying to build a new jank deck around. I'd really love to hear about it. And if you did enjoy the video or you got any kind of value from this one, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below, because it does help my channel out a ton. Not only that, it allows the YouTube algorithm to share this video and the rest of my videos with even more MTG fans out there, and that means the world to me, guys. So thank you guys again so much. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to smash that like button below, and to help you stay up to date with my upcoming videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks again, have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, Slayers.